Yeah, so as Tomasz already mentioned, today we will talk about customer discovery, or as I like to call it, why bother talking to people when you could be just building your business, right? Why would we talk to customers if we already know what we need to do? Now first, just a little bit about myself. I studied computer science. My name is Matic, yeah. I was working a lot as a web developer. I was working as a web developer for about 6 years altogether. I was engaged a lot in several different NGOs. I was leading different teams and working on several different projects. I was working as a head of marketing in a startup school in Slovenia. So that's also where I gained most of the knowledge that I'm going to share today with you. I've done many customer interviews, I've built many landing pages. That's also another topic that we're going to talk about today.
What is landing?
A landing page. We'll come to that part. It's a website that you build for your product, but the main point of that website is to learn from it, to learn from your customers. It's just the first product, the first thing that you can show to your customers, and your customers visit it, and then you see if they're interested. But we'll come to that later. I'll explain it in details. But yeah, I was working on different projects where we had to do customer interviews, where we had to build landing pages. So I've done this many times. So I know in practice how to actually do it. Now, okay, let's get to the topic. What's the biggest risk of a startup, or of any business really, when you're developing some new business model, developing a new business? One of the biggest problems is that you might build something that no one really wants. You will build a wrong product, and it's happening all the times. It's happening to many startups, because we have an idea, we think it's a brilliant idea, but then when we try to sell it, it turns out that customers don't really agree with us. They don't want to buy it. That's why it's so crucial to talk to customers. I'm sure that Tomasz already explained that yesterday, but we'll go much more into details today about that, because you can learn wrong things from customers. So it's quite an important topic. What's the proper way to talk to your customers? I believe you've seen this yesterday. It's the build, measure, learn cycle. This is the learning cycle in every startup, that every startup should take this learning cycle and just learn in cycles. We have an idea, we build a product or a prototype. At first it's always just a prototype. Then we try to measure what our customers think about it. The measurement part is either talking to customers, it's either how they are using our first prototype, it's either a landing page. That's how we get a chance to engage with customers and measure what they think. We get data from those measurements. Either it's our notes from the interviews, either it's analytical data from a website, from a product, from a shop, however, and then we learn based on that data. We try to figure out what our customers want, what were they doing, how were they using our products, what were they saying, what does that actually mean, and we get new ideas, we get new insights from that, and then we build again. We make the product better, we make it different, we pivot, as we can also say. We change the business model. And we should always go in this circle, just repeat this circle again and again until we find the repeatable, scalable business model which is actually profitable. Right? That makes sense. Okay, if anything doesn't make sense, please just stop me and ask. I'll be happy to answer. Now, what we will talk today about is the learning phase of this cycle. I believe you've done this yesterday. It's the business model canvas, so you're quite familiar with it already. Now, why we're doing customer interviews and landing pages is to validate everything that you put in your business model canvas. Because usually we're in a room and we create this business model canvas, and what we put in the canvas are our hypotheses, our thoughts, what we think that might be right, but we're not really sure. So before we actually start putting money in marketing, in building the products, in opening a store or anything, the cheapest and fastest way is to do customer interviews and to set up a landing page. That's why we're doing this. So customer development is a search for a business model, as I already mentioned. It's the way how to actually validate everything that you put in your business model or canvas. So yeah, remember this slide. Test your assumptions. That's the most important part. Because everything that just comes from your mind are definitely assumptions. We can never really be sure about it. Maybe someone else has done it, but he was in a different situation, on a different market, maybe in a different time. So you're in a unique situation and you need to test your assumptions, your hypothesis that you put in your canvas. Okay? Minimum viable product. What is minimum viable product? Did you talk about that yesterday? It's similar, like it's like a prototype. It's quite a similar thing. The most important part of the minimum viable product is that it has the core features or the value proposition. You have to know your value proposition, and your minimum viable product or your prototype has to present that value proposition. The most important part. Later, if we're selling donuts, later we come to additional sugar and colorful and nice product. But in the beginning, we need the minimum viable product to test the idea. So again, you have, I think you built your prototypes yesterday already. And with customer interviews, you test your minimum viable product. And later with the landing page, another way from a different perspective to test this minimum viable product. Now the most important part is to go for the most important part of your product. Don't add additional things because those don't really matter. You will add that later and you can improve the product later. Okay, now let's continue with our interviews. Anyone will say your idea is good if you bother them long enough. That's a fact. If you just go to some people and start asking them, this is my product and it's really awesome and look, you can do this and that and it's super useful. Sooner or later everyone will say, yeah, okay, just stop talking, it's amazing, now can I move on with my life, right? So that's one mistake that you definitely don't want to do. That's why we need to be careful how to talk to our customers. So first, before the interview, we need to prepare. The only people who know what the problem is are your customers. I think we've mentioned this already. Your customers are the people who you're going to sell your product to. You are often biased about your product. You think that you know what's the right thing, but you really don't. The market is the only way to tell if your product is built in the right way or not, if you're doing the right thing or not. During interviews, you should focus on your very specific segment. Later on, you will sell to different people, to different segments, but your first customers are usually the ones who have the biggest wish or the biggest pain that you're solving for them. And they have the biggest wish to buy your product. And those are the core customers, and you want to build your product for them. When you build it the right way for them, it means that other people who are similar to them or later other segments will also buy it. Know your goals. When you're doing customer development, your goal in the first place should be, you should try to fail with your business. You should try to make it, you should try to find mistakes. So that's the most important goal. You should try what are the bad things, what are the wrong assumptions. That's the most important part. But of course the idea is to try to validate everything that you're doing, all the assumptions. Formulate questions ahead of time. When you have the goals, you start getting an idea what kind of questions you should ask. The best thing is to prepare 3 core questions, 3, 4, however it feels for you. The most important questions that you think you should really ask. And then add some sub-questions that you can additionally ask. But what you really want to do with customers is you're not doing a poll or something. You're not asking them specific questions. You want to talk to them. Go to them, have a conversation with them. Try to figure out how they live. We'll come to that later. But don't just stick to your specific questions. Just engage in a conversation. Also, don't go to people and tell them, hey, can I have an interview with you? Because they will just get scared, like, whoa, interview. Officially, this form of this form of communication. It's called an interview, but it sounds a bit scary and too official. So just ask them, hey, can we talk? Can I ask you a few questions? Be prepared to hear things you don't want to hear. That's exactly what I was talking about before. Be prepared to hear that your idea is maybe not so good. But that's the best thing that you can hear, because that means that you will learn what you're doing wrong, and you won't spend money and time on building something that doesn't really work. So as much as it might be sad and depressing to hear some bad news, but it's actually really awesome to find it out as soon as possible. And write down your notes as quickly as possible. Whenever you're working, whenever you're doing interviews, it's really good if you can do it in pairs. So one can be asking questions, and the other person can write down all the answers or all the critical information. Because I know that from my personal experience when I was doing interviews, the person you're talking to a person and you're writing things down, and the person already stops talking, and you're still writing down, and you're quiet for 10 seconds because you can't talk and write at the same time. At least for me, it doesn't really work. That's why it's really useful if you're doing it in pairs. It's just much more convenient, and you don't have that awkward silence during the conversation, and you don't get confused and so on. This is a funny comic, but I wanted to put it on the slide to prove the point. It seems funny, but it's actually something that is happening all the time. You can check the pictures quickly, but it's actually happening because the customer explains something, the head of the project understands it in a different way, then the designer understands it differently again, and so on and so on. And we get completely different pictures from every person. And what's the point of this picture? Why this happens? It's always failure in communication, because we have problems communicating. And we see that this is what customer explained, and this is what customer really needed. This is what the business consultant described, of course. This is why it's so crucial that you know how to talk to customers, and that you don't get the wrong ideas out of it, right? Okay. This is an actual quote from Henry Ford. Henry Ford invented the car as we know it today, and he said, if I had asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. When he was in the times when he was living, people were riding horses, and of course no one had an idea, let's build a car. Of course not. It was a completely revolutionary idea. This is why we say that customers don't really know what they want. They know what problems they have, and we need to invent the solution for those problems. All right? Okay, now very specific about the actual interview. How we do it, how we talk to customers. Listen, don't talk. That's the first rule. Listen as much as possible. Talk as little as possible. Yes, ask questions, of course, but then just listen. It's better to be quiet and wait for the person to maybe say some more than just talk. Because you don't want to talk about your idea. You want the customer to tell you about his life. Give as little info as possible about your idea. This might surprise you in the beginning, but at least in the beginning of the interview, don't talk about your idea, because that's how you will make the person biased. You give the person the feeling about your idea, and they start talking about your idea, and suddenly they don't really talk about their problems anymore, but about your idea and about your solution, and that's not what we are looking for. We are looking for their problems. At the end of the interview, you can introduce your idea. You can tell them, okay, this is the solution that we think is solving your problem. Now let's talk about it. It has these features, and so on. Don't tell them what their problem is. Again, you should not really specifically ask them, is this your problem? You should ask them, okay, what problems are you seeing with this? What takes you the most time? How expensive is it for you? Is it too expensive? What bothers you about it? That's how you want to really go about it. Don't go directly to the problem. They should tell them what their problem is. Don't seek for approval. I'm saying that again. Don't ask people, do you think this is good? Because it's very, very likely that people will say, yeah, sure, it's good, it's awesome, because people are nice, we are generally nice, and we try to make other people feel good, and people say, yeah, I think it's very good job. But in our head we might think something different. Or we might even genuinely think, yeah, it's a good idea, but I wouldn't really use it, because something. So don't seek for approval. That's not what you want during the interview. Even if someone says, yeah, this is amazing, you shouldn't really take that for granted. It doesn't mean it's really amazing. Talk about their life, not their ideas. This is, again, you should ask them, okay, so how are you currently solving this problem? How was the last time when you had this problem? How, and so on. Ask them about specific things that are actually happening in their life. Okay? And always dig deeper. Especially, like, discover why they want something. Ask them, if you're not sure why they said something, ask them, okay, so why do you think so? Why do you do it like that? How do you do it? And so on. And yeah, this is a very good point. How are they currently solving their problem? That tells you really a lot about how they are currently doing it and how your product would solve this problem. And is your product cheaper? Is it more convenient? Will it save them time? And so on. That's how you might get some ideas maybe on how to improve your product. Okay? Everything clear? What customers say they want, what customers actually want. This is, again, the point that often customers don't really know what they want, but they know what problems they have. So you have to come up with the solution, they have to tell you what their problems are. Okay? Don't fall for fluff talk. That's a very common mistake that we make in interviews. Because people often say, I often brush my teeth in the evening. And then you ask them, okay, so when was the last time you brushed your teeth? And they will say, 4 days ago. Okay, so maybe you don't do it so often, or maybe you don't do it every day, right? That's why we should go very into specifics. Tell me exactly, when was the last time you've done it? How many times this week have you done this? How did it feel when you've done that? Go very much into specifics. Try to understand how they are doing something. When, get very specific data from them. Now, the mom test. This is actually the next few slides from Rob Fitzpatrick. And it's sort of a game which is called the mom test, but there's also a book called the mom test written by Rob Fitzpatrick. He's probably the most famous guy when it comes to customer interviews. So he wrote this book, The Mom Test, which is talking just about customer interviews. So if you ever want to get even more into details, I suggest you to read that book. It's quite short, it's like one afternoon or maybe one day of reading. Why it's called The Mom Test? Because your mom, if you ask your mom, hey mom, I made this thing, what do you think about it? Your mom will always be like, yeah, this is amazing, you're such a good daughter, you're such a great son, amazing, that's very good. And how we want to talk to our customers as if they were our mothers. And we want to try to get a no from them. We try to get from them the words, no, this is not good, you're not doing it right. You get the point. So we need to be really careful. That's why it's called the mom test. Just pretend that your customers are your mother and try to get a negative response from them. So what we'll do in the next few slides, there will be some questions. I pretend that I'm asking those questions and that you are the customers. And now tell me, is this a good question to ask? What do you think?
No.
They will say yes, of course.
They will say yes. Okay, do you agree? Okay. Yeah, I think so too. That's not a good question to ask. Because, exactly, they will say, yeah, that's a great idea, you should continue doing that. But I don't really care about it. But yeah, it's awesome.
In Slovenia, everyone says, like, you tell them your idea and then everyone says, zanimivo. Everyone. And that means it's a bullshit. But everyone says, zanimivo.
That's a very good point. Interesting. That's the worst word you want to hear.
Yeah.
Whenever someone says interesting, that means it's bad. It's bad. You don't want to hear that word, definitely. Next one. Would you buy a product which solved this problem? Is that a good question or a bad question?
Yeah, good question.
But
Good. It's not so good. Why?
Yeah.
What did I have?
It's fluff talk. Would you buy something? It's actually fluff talk induced question. Would you buy something? Yeah, of course I would. Why not? But I will not. I would, but then you ask them, okay, give me money. No, maybe not. So that's not a what you have to ask them. Okay, buy it now. Here I will deliver it to you in a month because it's not done yet. But give me a prepayment. Okay? But that's a very common mistake that you want to be careful about. It's really easy when you're standing on the street. Imagine that you're standing on the street asking a customer, or that someone is asking you. Someone is asking you, would you buy this? And you say, yeah, sure, just leave me alone. I want to just validate their idea. Yeah, absolutely. But you won't really buy it. You just say that so that they will leave you alone, right?
But for some in-depth conversation,
Yeah. You ask them, give me your money now.
just
You want
cash
to
them
sell
and
it to them.
take the money.
You want to sell it to them.
If not, then you just take.
okay.
How do you
But
current-
the good question would be, have you ever
Have you ever? Yeah, exactly.
buy?
Exactly. That's much better. What do you buy at the moment? What do you buy at the moment to solve this same problem? How are you currently solving this problem? What do you do when you're in this situation? Exactly, that's better. How do you currently deal with this problem? That's
Okay.
now I'm ready. Is it a good question?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's how you get real insights into their life, and you see how they're actually solving it now. Talk me through the last time you had this problem. Good or bad?
Good.
Good? Alright, that's a good question. Okay.
Green is good and red is
Yeah.
bad.
I'm sorry, I didn't explain that.
It's again the same thing.
Yeah. Green is good, red is bad. Yeah. Sorry. I'm learning fast.
Oh shit.
Okay. How much would you pay for this? Is it a good question or a bad question? Green or red?
Always when they have this good, this like supposedly this is never good. Huh?
Exactly.
This is what they say.
Exactly. How much would you pay for this question? It's not so good question. Ask them, how much are you paying now to solve this problem? Right? How much money does this problem cost you? Good or bad?
Well, this is good because you get to know what is the situation. Really.
Yeah,
I know
that's a
about
good
the
question.
color stuff.
Exactly. I see, you're getting it. Great. Amazing. Is there a budget for it? This is maybe more if you're working on a business-to-business product. Not necessarily. Green or red? Green or red? Red?
Ooh.
It's a good question. Because it means they are already thinking about solving that problem and they already have some money saved for that problem. So that's a good thing. Who else should I talk to? Is that a good or a bad question? Generally that's a good question because one thing is definitely maybe they are not the right person to talk to about this, and the other thing is maybe they know other people who have the same problem, and they can direct you to them, and you get more potential customers to talk to them. So it's actually a great question to ask at the end of each interview. Okay, do you know anyone else who has this problem? can you maybe introduce them to me, and so on. Okay. Now we have responses from our mom. And she says, sounds great, I love it. That a good response or a bad response?
From them.
It is
Yeah.
as zanimivo.
Zanimivo.
The same.
Exactly, that's a zanimivo kind of response. Brilliant, let me know when it launches, when the product will be done and you'll start selling it. No, still. There are a couple of people I can introduce you to when you're ready.
It's better.
What do you think about this one?
Good one.
Good one. I colored it yellow. In this case, we want to dig a little bit deeper. Because why? Okay, you can introduce me to someone, that's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing, maybe you just want to get rid of me. And when you're ready, why when I'm ready? Can you introduce me now? Why you want to wait with it? Again, so it's generally, it can be a good answer, but you maybe want to ask just a few additional questions just to understand it better. What do they actually mean? I would definitely buy that, but definitely.
Yeah, but it's still this good, no?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's it about the interviews. I can see that after this exercise you're getting a feeling what are good questions, what are bad questions, good answers, bad answer, and so on.
But there's no good answer.
It was no good answer.
There's no good answer. That's true. Good answers are always very specific. Very, I think you got the feeling from the questions already. When they're talking about very specific things, when they're talking about their life, when they're talking how they're solving the problem, how they have actually done it, when they have done it, and so on. Okay? Makes sense. We will prepare two things today. First will be a so-called empathy map. Empathy map is a really cool exercise, or it's a tool actually. It's a tool to get to know your customers better before you even start talking to them. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fields. Here is what this person is thinking and doing. We try to get into this person's head. We try to imagine that we are our target customers right now. And we try to write in this field what they are thinking, what they are doing in their life. Maybe even what they are not saying out loud, but they are just thinking in their head, and so on. Here, what do they see? What do they see in everyday life? What kind of friends do they have? What kind of websites do they visit? What kind of newspapers are they reading? And so on. Here, what do they hear? Again, who are they talking to? What kind of radio stations are they listening to? What kind of things do they hear? And here is what do they say? What are they talking to their friends? What are they're talking to with their colleagues? What are they actually saying out loud, not just thinking, and so on. This is how you get a really good feeling about your customers. And you can imagine that you are your customer, and after this exercise it's much easier to prepare the interviews, and later it's even easier to prepare your landing page. And when you start with marketing, it's amazing to look at this and you get a feeling, aha, this is who my customer is, this is what they will react to, this is what they're interested in, this is where I should do my marketing. So that's why it's a really good exercise, really good tool to get a feeling about your customers, who they are, what do they do. And here are their pain. What are their pains and gains from your product? Pain that your product is solving, and gain is what they are gaining with using your product. Does that make sense? Okay. If it doesn't, you can always ask me later. Now, perfect. It's noon right now. So we will have, let's say, 15 minutes for the empathy map, and later you'll have about 15 to 20 minutes to prepare your interviews. Let's do the empathy map first, okay? But just so you know what's going on later, you will prepare your interviews, and then we will go through your interviews together. You will present your questions, and you will try to make one interview with someone else from this group. So that will be it from the practical part. And in the end, I have another presentation about landing pages. It will be quite short about how to make your landing page to actually start selling your product. It's not really selling yet, but it's very close to that.